and welcome to the Firm Foundation Series Bite-Size, lesson number 18, Adam and Eve disobeyed God. Well, here's what's happened up to this point. God creates Adam, who in turn names all of God's creatures. God knows that Adam needs a partner, a helpmate, so he causes Adam to fall into a deep sleep, and he creates Eve from one of Adam's ribs. God told Adam and Eve that they could eat from any tree in the Garden of Eden except from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, because the day that they would eat from that tree, they would die. Well, Eve ventures over to that tree of the knowledge of good and evil. She begins talking to a snake, which may seem kind of strange to us, but Satan was speaking to her through that snake. The snake lies to Eve. He deceives her. He gets her to doubt God's goodness. She disobeys God by eating from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, and then she offers some of this fruit to Adam, who in turn eats it. Immediately, they're both aware of their nakedness, and they're both ashamed. They sew together some fig leaves in an attempt to cover up their nakedness. And then they attempt to hide from God. And now they're face to face with God. They're naked and ashamed, and they begin blaming each other and passing the buck. Well, let's see how John Huston depicted this very scene in his 1966 epic, The Bible in the Beginning.
Eve, I will greatly multiply thy sorrow and thy conception. In sorrow shalt thou bring forth children, and thy desire shall be to thy husband, and he shall rule over thee. Adam, because thou hast hearkened unto thy wife, and hast eaten of the tree, cursed is the ground for thy sake. In sorrow shalt thou eat of it all the days of thy life. Thorns also, and thistles shall it bring forth to thee. Thou shalt eat the herb of the field. In the sweat of thy face shalt thou eat bread, till thou returnest unto the ground. For out of it wast thou taken, for dust thou art, and unto dust shalt thou return.
And now God pronounces judgment. A, God's curse on the serpent. God cursed the serpent because it had been used by Satan. God does not tell us what the serpent was like before Satan used it to deceive Eve, but we know that it didn't slide around or slither on its belly when God first created it. But now God said it must slither on its belly and eat dust. And God knew that it was Satan who spoke through the serpent to tempt Eve. B, the promised seed of the woman. Well, once Adam and Eve disobeyed God and followed the advice of Satan, they were then separated from God and controlled by Satan. They were no longer the children of God. And their sinful DNA was passed on to the entire human race. Your sinful nature, my sinful nature, it can be traced to what occurred here in Genesis 3 in the garden. God then promises that he would send a deliverer who would overcome Satan and deliver mankind from his power. Genesis chapter 3:15. I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between your offspring and her offspring, and he shall bruise your head, and you shall bruise his heel. Well, God planned that the promised deliverer would be the child of a virgin woman. Notice that it does not say their offspring. You see, the man is not even mentioned in this verse. When we read of the crushing of the head, this is a picture of crushing the leadership or authority of a great power. When the head is crushed, the rest of the body cannot survive. But the one whose heel is crushed survives, even though wounded. And this foretells of Christ being wounded, broken, and nailed to the cross. And we are told that the deliverer would fight against Satan, the god of this world, the ruler of evil powers, and that the deliverer would overcome him. Satan would fight against the deliverer and would wound him, but Satan would not be able to overpower him. This promised one would destroy Satan and deliver mankind from Satan's power so that man would once again be in oneness with God. Isaiah 7:14. Therefore the Lord himself will give you a sign. Behold, the virgin shall conceive and bear a son, and shall call his name Emmanuel. And as the angel Gabriel told Mary in Luke chapter 1, and behold, you will conceive in your womb and bear a son, and you shall call his name Jesus. He will be great. He will be called the Son of the Most High. And the Lord God will give to him the throne of his father David, and he will reign over the house of Jacob forever, and of his kingdom there will be no end. C, God's curse on the woman. Genesis 3:16. To the woman he said, I will surely multiply your pain in childbearing. In pain you shall bring forth children. Your desire shall be for your husband, and he shall rule over you. God spoke to Eve and told her that because she had disobeyed the Lord, she and all future mothers would suffer in childbirth. Her husband would have authority over her. D, God's curse on the man and on the earth. Genesis 3:17. And to Adam he said, because you have listened to the voice of your wife and have eaten of the tree of which I commanded you, that you shall not eat of it, cursed is the ground because of you. In pain you shall eat of it all the days of your life. Thorns and thistles it shall bring forth for you, and you shall eat the plants of the field. By the sweat of your face you shall eat bread, till you return to the ground. For out of it you were taken, for you are dust, and to dust you shall return. Adam had foolishly listened to Eve instead of obeying what God had said to him. Also, Adam was shirking his responsibility, because really he should have been by Eve's side when she was having the conversation with the snake. He could have said, "Hey, what are you doing talking to that snake? Snakes don't talk." Adam knew what God had said. But you see, he was willing to follow Eve's suggestion rather than do what he knew to be God's will. Satan works in such subtle ways to cause us to believe him instead of God. In scratching out a living, and hard work and death would be his end. He would return to the ground. He would return to dust. And that's so true today. We constantly struggle today against sickness, pain, weakness, pain in childbearing, heavy labor, difficult weather conditions, animal and insect pests, weeds, sorrow, grief, and death. None of these things even existed in the world before Adam and Eve sinned. Well, next time in Lesson 19, God kicks Adam and Eve out of the garden. Now, why would he do that? Well, you'll find out in Lesson 19. Until then, Pastor Dale saying, Shalom.